Hey everyone, this is Darthbriboy, and this is going to be one of those videos where the comment section and the like to dislike bar is going to be a real shit show. So prepare your ass. Let's talk about one of the alt-right's favorite little darlings. Everyone's favorite delusional, racist, bigoted, evil, vile, and most importantly, the right's favorite terrorist who just happens to be a news commentator. Now, who is it, you may be asking? Is it A, Tommy Lahren, B, Lauren Southern, C, this chick from the NRA? You guessed it? If you answered B, you're right. Because B stands for biatch. And that's exactly what Lauren Southern is. She's part of this white victim cult bullshit. They complain. What I love about these conservative assholes is they have the audacity to claim that black people have this victim cult mentality. One, that's complete bullshit. If you really study how fucked black people have been in the United States, and I mean you look at the poverty rate, you look at how their neighborhoods have been screwed over, the drug war, you look at all these things, and you realize the complaint from the alt-right is that black people are lazy is bullshit. So this is the one point I want to bring up about Lauren Southern. She loves to try to straw man the left as a bunch of crazy, violent lunatics. One, if I can say anything about the Antifa movement that's been going on, it is a reaction to the philosophy and the ideas of, let me think, ethnic cleansing. Let me ask you this. Unless you are your stereotypical white person, do you think you're going to react to the notion of ethnic cleansing well from these white nationalists like Lauren Southern? No, you're not. Lauren Southern has been banned from the United Kingdom. Not only for hate speech, the hate speech laws are different in the UK as opposed to the US. That's one point. Point number two. Let's go on to why I called her a terrorist to begin with. You shoot a flare gun. Not above, at a boat carrying migrants. You could only rationalize shooting a fucking flare gun at a boat of migrants fleeing a shithole situation if you're a white supremacist bigot afraid of diversity and the evil race mixing, or the evils of diversity. So, she was arrested for doing this. No shit! How the fuck is she even walking free, if we're gonna keep it real right now? Okay, if a black person pulled that shit, or a person of color pulled that shit, do you honestly think they'd be even breathing? Do you honestly think that? No. But because she's blonde, white, has a nice rack, she can get away with it. Lauren Southern is a vile, evil person. Her ideas are stupid. She hangs out with this schmuck. She interviewed this guy, I should say, who called for a genocide in Ukraine. What the fuck do you call that? And the alt-right has the audacity to claim the left doesn't want to have a discussion. The left doesn't want to have a discussion. What's there to discuss? How you want to kill me? I'm Jewish. Should I not be afraid of the white supremacist and white nationalist? Answer, yes, I should be afraid of them. But they tried to kill my people once. They'll do it again, if left unchecked. The problem with a president like Donald Trump, and yes, I am going back to Donald Trump because he unfortunately really normalized this type of rhetoric as being acceptable in the political discourse. Shit like eugenics, fucking race realism, fucking white nationalism, fucking white supremacy. Actually, white nationalism and white supremacy are the same fucking thing, just with some little word changes. Let me tell you right now, as someone who sees through all that shit, again, maybe it's because I'm Jewish and live in a diverse neighborhood, that I probably don't give a flying fuck about white genocide, which is another thing Lauren Southern pushes. She pushes the conspiracy theory of white genocide. Now, let's go into what a genocide is. People in concentration camps being systematically executed. You know, like a Holocaust, like the Rwandan genocide, like Darfur. You know, that's really what a genocide is, if you're going to look into it. That makes sense. Genocide isn't people depleting because white people maybe don't want to hook up with other white people. That's not a genocide. If you're afraid of that, it's because you're afraid of losing your power. You're afraid of what it's like to be a minority. And you know why? Because you've treated minorities like shit for centuries. And you're afraid of what will happen to you when you're a minority. Here's some advice. Treat people with respect. Stop being a bigoted schmuck. Get over yourself. And maybe you'll be treated with some respect. That's not to say that there isn't prejudice against white people. Depending on where you go, you will face some type of prejudice because of your skin color. That is a fact. However, racism is a very different thing if you look at certain definitions of it. But going back to Lauren Southern, if her actions, it's not only her racist, skewed commentary, that's a bad thing. We have free speech in the U.S. You can say whatever you want, no matter how offensive it is. However, that doesn't mean you won't be criticized for it. And Lauren Southern is one of the types of people I'm talking about. If you want proof of this, here's a link in the description. And a message to every white supremacist who's going to comment some bullshit. I am used to you at this point. I know your talking points. Why? Because I keep the comment section open. Sometimes I accidentally delete comments out of a sheer moment of anger. And I regret doing that. Because I lose some of the most precious, cringeworthy, trash comments I see on my videos. White supremacists, like Lauren Southern, do not need to be taken seriously. She represents a vile ideology that has the dangers of coming back. Obviously, not through the language of the early 20th century eugenicist. So you can't really pull the same IQ, and the same fucking skull craniumtology shit that you pulled back in the early days. Because people know what that type of gaslighting is. People are smart enough to know that is racist. But what you have done is pure genius. You have masked it in such a way that people who are centrists and who are normal and don't really have a skeptical or critical or observant eye to this type of shit can be suckered right in. That's what Lauren Southern appeals to. I will leave some links to some Dick Coughlin videos in the description as well, because he, in terms of his knowledge and rantings of Lauren Southern, are more informative and I would say far more entertaining than my rants. But you need a good rant to call out these types of people. If you don't, they'll come back. You want to do a response video, fine. But I'll say this to every white supremacist out there. Now, Lauren, if your ideas weren't so toxic and vile, maybe you would be a much more happier person. And to anyone that can excuse her white supremacy and be friends with her, shame on you. There are certain people in this world who should be reviled and hated, who should be looked at as the pinnacle of evil. Lauren Southern is a prime example of that. She masks it in the, it's all about free speech. How convenient. You play this free speech card when it's only convenient to you. See, when the other side of the argument, the more SJW side of the argument comes in and calls you out, or maybe just the left, not so SJW side calls you out, you jump on their videos, you bitch and moan and complain. And you try to censor those people into fear of negative comments, to the point where they disable the likes and the comments, because they don't want to deal with that shit. Now let me tell you this right now. If you were really for free speech, you would cite this. I strongly disagree with what you're saying, but you have the right to say it. However, this is where I think you're wrong. You want to do that? Fine. But let me tell you this right now. You don't. People like Richard Spencer don't care about free speech. He said it himself.
But as far as government regulation, I mean, yes, I think in the short term we would favor government regulation of speech, but long term, are we even pro-free speech?
No, of course not. But we have to use this platform in order.
So we're being radically honest here. And,
yes, radically pragmatic. Yes.
Unsurprisingly, he is a fascist. And what's depressing to see is that the libertarian, the fascist pipeline, isn't something that's bullshit. Look at someone like Stefan Molyneux. He was a right-wing libertarian. He was mocking the idea of Mexican immigration becoming this great international problem. And it's not. It's not. But he was laughing at it. He was calling out the Bush-era war criminals. Now, he drank the alt-right Kool-Aid and is 100% okay with defending Donald Trump. And if you think that I can't counter your racist, pathetic arguments, I have data, I have documents, and I have sources to counter you. But knowing you, even if I gave you the sources, you would say fake news, because that's all you fucking have at the end of the day. Rebel media is a pathetic organization of fear and paranoia. I have gone to the streets of an Antifa rally, and I've interviewed a white supremacist. And let me tell you, it took everything I had to do this one simple act. He was harassing a Jewish American. I was encouraging my fellow leftists to back off, to ignore his points. I got in and I started arguing with him. He was talking about genocide and ethnic cleansing. I said, the fact that you believe, and I was going to try to finish by stating, it shows how pathetic and weak your ideology is, that you can't handle the debate of ideas, the free exchange of ideas, a real exchange of ideas. But I didn't do that. I opened my arms for a hug. It was one of the most emotional and difficult experiences I have ever had. For those of you that don't know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is one of my heroes. There was a segment in Cornel West's book titled The Radical King. It was an assortment of his speeches and letters with some Cornel West commentary thrown in. Through that book, King stated the importance of nonviolence. He stated, it's not just the violence of doing this. It's not just resisting the urge to throw a punch. It is the violence from within one's self. The anger, the rage, the feeling of vengeance. And it is very difficult to do that. And I will say it is ironic that I am bringing this up in a rant video. It is difficult for one to repress the violence from within. But once you do, you are open to compassion and love to those that are unwilling to show it to you. As much as I rant and rave about and joke about attacking a white supremacist, it's not within me to do it. I will fight if I have no choice. But I would much prefer I try, and hopefully do, the non-violence approach of the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I will leave this off with this. To my fellow leftists, remember this. It is impossible for the white supremacist to ever truly be nonviolent. For one simple fact. Their entire philosophy and ideology is based on fear, hate, and violence. They propose ideas and fear-mongering such as the Great Replacement, where a conspiracy is being brought up against white people to be replaced by minorities. They have no proof of this. It is all fear. And an example of a victim complex. They also will be the first to strike, the first to kill, the first to attack you. And I understand. Believe me, I do. And in certain videos that I have made in the past, I have even argued for the violence approach, the self-defense approach. And a friend of mine has advised that because of my skin color and because I look white, I cannot suggest this. But I will, because it's the goddamn truth. Do you know how we win the argument? Do you know how we win? It's by being non-violent. I understand why Antifa exists. I understand the temptation to be violent. But we must always, always resist that. Because we'll lose the argument. We'll lose potential sympathy from those that do not see us as people acting in self-defense. They will see us as agitators and anarchists and those that want to cause violence and chaos in society. But when we are nonviolent, when we resist the internal violence from within, when we train to be peaceful activists, when we learn to try to love our enemy, to open our hands for a hug, that's when we start winning. It may sound far-fetched. I understand. Because of my skin color, I may not be able to fully relate to the plights of those that are black, brown, Asian, Native American, or anyone else that is not my skin color. I accept the fact that I have white privilege. I acknowledge that. But I encourage you, nevertheless, to be as non-violent as possible. Even when it seems hopeless and futile, non-violence works. People sympathize with you and are willing to join your cause when you refuse to raise a fist back. It's hard, it's difficult, and it may seem impossible. But when we are willing to have the moral high ground in nonviolence, we win. We turn the press against them. We make the alt-right lose their platforms. And I know these bastards will just hide in their internet dens waiting to strike again. But that doesn't change the fact that nonviolence does work. And it makes those that may seem susceptible to white supremacy being a reasonable option push away from it once they see what it does. For some, the civil rights movement is a distant memory. It's history. And it is that. But it does not change the fact how powerful those images were. It doesn't change the fact that we have the potential to win back a side of YouTube. Sure, some may scoff at our ideas. That's to be accepted. But how we show that we are better is through nonviolence. Actually, that's not true. To every white supremacist, know this. Your fear, your hatred, and your willful ignorance of diversity is what will destroy you. Human beings as a species do not favor the loner. The loner is primarily the one that fails. What I say to the white supremacists is going to sound like something straight out of Star Wars, but quote everyone, my favorite crazy right-winger, I will say he was right about this. Watch Star Wars, you'll learn a lot. Let go of your hatred for those that look different from you. They are not trying to wipe you out. Migrants are looking for a place to stay. A safe haven. Your fear of the other will destroy you. Your embrace of differences and acceptance of differences is what will help you. A society that is tolerant should never, ever tolerate intolerance. Those are the people that must be reformed. White supremacists, you have a lot of reforming to do. Let's hope you do it before it's too late.